Jeffersonian America was wary of cities. Rural folks constantly warned young people to stay away from them. However, between the 1880s and 1900s, American cities and towns grew dramatically. The growth of American cities and towns is directly linked to the expansion of industry and an influx of immigrants. As America evolved from an agricultural society to an industry led economy, many people from rural America flocked to cities in pursuit of opportunities. As the nation entered a period of economic expansion, railroads expanded westwards, and population growth in urban centers increased. The population growth in the country's cities necessitated the introduction of skyscrapers, which required resilient materials to construct. The steel industry provided the answer to that requirement. In this Liber-Tea episode, we will be discussing America's urban history and the influence of the steel industry on its growth. Before the 1870s, only Philadelphia and New York held more than 500 inhabitants. At the time, the city of New York was home to around 813,669 people. Around 565,529 people, on the other hand, inhabited Philadelphia. Inventions in Chicago and New York facilitated the development of the skyscrapers during the 1880s. The skyscraper was a uniquely American style of agriculture that other nations began using during the late 20th century. The construction of skyscrapers demanded two critical innovations: the steel beam and the elevator. The development of skyscrapers replaced legacy infrastructure that was limited to 10 to 15 stories. As cities grew, skyscrapers shot up like germinating seeds from the ground. Steel is a remarkable metal preferred due to its versatility and dependable quality. It is also an economically and environmentally friendly option for constructing buildings and long-term equipment such as towers and transmission poles. Steel holds its original quality even under extreme environmental stress, including intense heat, unlike many other metals. Advancements in the steel industry have played a critical role in creating some of the most iconic buildings in the country. The U.S. boasts numerous worthy examples of steel engineering and agricultural designs. Some worthy examples of steel structures in American cities include, but are not limited to, the Golden Gate Bridge, Empire State Building, Sears Tower, Walt Disney Concert Hall, and the Gateway Arch. The growth of the steel industry is closely intertwined with the rise of American cities, starting in the late 1850s. Before developing the Bessemer converter in 1857, steel was extremely costly to produce. It was only utilized in small, expensive things like armor, swords, and knives. Following this development, from 1874 to 1920, the U.S. steel industry grew tremendously to become the world leader in steel production. The growth of the U.S. steel industry is attributed to its solid technological foundations and the country's rapid and continuous development of urban infrastructure. Additionally, the availability of nearly abundant coal and iron ore also spurred the rapid growth of the American steel industry. The growth of American industries made urban centers a key industry driver. Cities were an abundant source of labor for industries and provided firms with, among other things, financial infrastructure. Ambitious young Americans flocked to cities as they were a great source of wealth. Taking advantage of the financial infrastructures in cities, they could raise capital for their business. This transformed cities like Chicago and New York into business hubs, which made them develop into epic proportions. Between 1850 to 1900, the population of New York grew from 500,000 to 3.5 million. Chicago grew rapidly from 100,000 to 1.2 million inhabitants. This made it the fastest growing American city during the first half of the 19th century. Structural steel was used to construct skyscrapers within which millions of city dwellers lived. Structural steel revolutionized the steel industry. It was not only stronger, but it was also ideal for fireproofing. This product was different from Bessemer steel used in the construction of railroads. Andrew Carnegie, a steel industry mogul, jumped into the structural steel bandwagon to create one of America's most celebrated and successful steel companies, Carnegie Steel. City housing involves a myriad of styles. However, tenement housing and apartment buildings got the most attention. Tenement houses were designed for the working class, while apartment buildings were the preserve of the middle class. Apartments came first as middle class, white collar workers, business persons, and professionals realized that single family housing was too costly. Additionally, hotel suites were expensive and boarding houses were inappropriate for families. There were numerous apartments over shops and stores in smaller cities, which local business people typically owned. Generally, residents of these apartments did not own them, so they paid rent. However, the emergence of cooperatives and condominiums in New York after the Second World War changed this. In New York, for instance, the Stuyvesant luxury apartment was home to the city's elite. Apartment buildings for the affluent were decked with the most modern features and amenities. Their full-time staff handled everything, including security, upkeep, and maintenance. The less luxurious middle-class apartments provided residents with elevators, gas lighting, and effective plumbing, heating, and maintenance men. In every American city, apartment buildings were constructed along the routes of street railroads, for middle-class people rode the streetcar to their jobs, while working-class people saved every coin and walked. The working class crowded in tenement buildings, which had fewer amenities. Tenement buildings were easy and cheap to build and occupied almost an entire lot. New York tenement buildings lacked indoor toilets and running water. Most of these buildings existed until the 1950s urban renewal movement. Through the 19th century, sanitation problems were pervasive within American cities. Major cities had the worst problems. Accumulation of horse and human waste was a common sight on city streets. Population growth and industrial expansion had a profound effect on American cities. Traffic jams, noise, air pollution, crime, slums, and health and sanitation issues were commonplace. New communities referred to as suburbs began to sprout beyond cities. As mass transit through subways, trolleys, and cable cars were built, the number of people living in the suburbs increased. As suburbs grew, the demand for cars and urban infrastructure rose. These added to the growth of the industry. In the 1890 to 1930 era, major American cities enjoyed national attention. Many underwent reforms that made them more attractive and sanitary. Tourist attractions and skyscrapers were widely popularized. Motor vehicles were introduced to the streets for the first time. City residents became concerned with the increase in accidents. The response to this problem was the first witnessed in Radburn, New Jersey, when the city introduced the neighborhood unit-style development. These reforms oriented residential houses to a common public path rather than the street. Additionally, the neighborhood is distinctly constructed around a school to give children a safe pathway to school. The evolution of American cities is a thing of beauty. It allows us to look back and discover how far we have come as a country. It also offers us an opportunity to appreciate the contribution of American industries to the prestige and prosperity of our cities. The steel industry is one of the industries that America is built on. This industry provided the raw materials to construct our cities, but it also employed thousands of Americans across the country. Numerous towns owe their iconic structures to this industry. Steel was used to construct the Transcontinental Railway, opening the West. Advancements in the steel industry led to the discovery of structural steel, which revolutionized urban construction. Using this new, stronger steel, engineers constructed numerous skyscrapers that housed the city's residents. Thank you for joining us in this captivating episode where we discussed Americans' urban history and its connection with the steel industry. We hope that you have enjoyed the discussion and gained an appreciation of American industry and its contribution to the growth of our cities. As the saying goes, knowledge is power, and sharing knowledge is sharing power. Like, share, and subscribe to Liber-Tea for more thought-provoking discussions. Also, feel free to make your contributions to the discussion by posting your opinion on the comments section.